Well, hello. It's time for the third time's the charm edition of Pens in Use. This is the show where I talk about the fountain pens and inks I've been using throughout the week. So let's dive into it. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old, and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, how do you deal with communication? Do you struggle with it? Do you struggle with communication from others? We're going to talk about communication in the pen world after we take a look at me communicating about 8 pens and inks. So, in the meantime, let's take a look at some pens. Alright, so these are not all the pens that you're going to see tonight. It just seems to be the pens in use of errors and mistakes and camera failure. So, the first 3 pens, writing samples, didn't record. It just suddenly started recording after about when I started the 4th pen. So, these are the first 3 of my pens, and I just didn't feel like setting everything up again. So we have from left to right in the first 3. The others you'll just have to see as I get to them. We have a Pilot Justus 95, Geha Champion, and a vintage Cleo Skribent. And I think, if I remember right, the order, I should be laying them like that. So I do have a special surprise in the Geha Champion, which I think is worth seeing. So without further ado... Oh, look! I already recorded this. We'll just move down here. Well, doggone, do it again. Damn it. So this is the Pilot Justus 95. It's been my daily writer, and I have used a lot of ink out of it. But it has one of those fun adjustable nibs. I usually keep it on the soft setting. And I'm using up my Omas black ink in it. Not going to be sorry to see it go. Not going to be excited, just it's not an ink that really struck me one way or the other. I kind of like the bottle, but as a black ink, it's nothing special. I like their gray a little bit better. I don't actually know if Omas, in its new incarnation, is going to get back into the ink business. They never did have very many colors, so it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. My next pen is one I never actually did a video on, which surprised me. Oh, wrong way. So this is the Cleo Skribent, a vintage version. I don't know much about this company, and I need to learn more. So I'm going to learn more before I film the actual video on this pen. But we have a Cleo Skribent, vintage. It has a medium nib, as you probably can't see, because to my eye at least this looks very underexposed under this camera. And the ink in it is de Atramentis, Violet. Has a smell to it, so it's one of those scented inks. And it's a very attractive color, so all in all, I'm pretty pleased with it. It does, like a lot of de Atramentis inks, have a tendency to spread wide in the paper. Not quite to the level of feathering, which I will get into toward later in this video. But, definitely a thing to know. I'm just moving this slightly. Okay. My last pen has a wonderful surprise. So this is a Geha champion, and you can see converter. This was supposed to be to check the level of the spare cartridge, but I don't have a spare cartridge in here. I have a converter. And if you have followed this channel for a while, and yeah, I this week mentioned a pen and mentioned that its logo was upside down, so it is on this one too. So apparently that's a posting thing, but I have so few pens where the logo is on its cap that I never noticed it before. But anyway, if I open this up, this is what's cool. That is a platinum converter in my Geha champion. I have never in my life found a Geha converter. I have refilled Geha cartridges because I can find them. I have been told I could use cross, but I haven't had good luck with it. But platinum fits perfectly. Who knew? So we have a Geha champion. I think I'm still on screen. Oh, not the greatest. It's this. This is not. You can see why I quit using this camera, especially when the lighting changes here in just a minute. So it's a Geha champion. I don't think I see a nib size. No, just says Geha. I don't know, probably a medium or a fine. And the ink in it is Atramentis. Red roses. And it's another one of those scented inks. Scented to me means next to nothing. I mean, I can smell it, sure, but it's not important to me one way or the other. And it is slightly annoying sometimes when the pen still smells like that when I put the next ink in. But it is an attractive color of red. So, anyway, we'll take a jump in camera and continue on with what I recorded earlier this week that for some reason just started randomly in the middle of things. All right, so what you may not know, but I'm sure you noticed the blip, battery just died in my camera because I knew it was low, I just didn't quite realize how low. All right, which means I'm using it. I haven't had to change the battery. No, yes, I have. I have had to change the battery. I just haven't been surprised before. All right, so anyway, the Geha champion with the red roses. It's another very nice red ink. And I tend to find I like my Atramentis inks the best in finer nibs because they do tend to spread a bit in the paper. That might be another term. Some people might call it feathering, but I don't find it obnoxious the way feathering is. So, what's a good word? That's why I'm going to do a video about it. Right, the next pen is the Dolcevita masterpiece, huh? There she be. So this pen has that silly fusion nib. And as I say every time I've shown this nib off, Delta went out of business, but they are back, and I haven't tried one of their new pens. So this is a mid-size version. I was never interested in their full size. There was a fusion, I can't remember what the model was, but it had a very nice kind of marbled, not marbled, spotted, is that a word? Finish. It, the brown kind of looked like the surface of the moon. Anyway, I always thought that would be an attractive pen to own. Never bought it. I did own another Delta. Part of the reason Myosotis, Delta Serena. I liked that one. Part of the reason I moved out of my basement set was I dropped it while transporting pens down to the basement set. And it broke. And of course Delta was out of business, and I thought, well, shoot, what about any other of the weird pens I own that no longer are made? So that was part of what convinced me to move upstairs. I did try gluing it. The glue held for a number of years, and then the glue broke. Sad day. All right. The next pen is a Marshall. Now, you'll notice, since we're talking about writing, the logo is going the right direction on this one, because there isn't one on the cap. So it seems to be that when it's on the cap, it goes the wrong direction. Presumably, what people are saying, so it looks right when it's posted. And this is one of those rare pens that I post. Yes, I spelled that right. That's how it's spelled on the brand. Don't yell at me. So, Herbin. Lee de Te. Oh, good gravy. There we go. Lee de Te. Okay. I may have been writing with this one a little too much this week. That's embarrassing. It doesn't hold much ink. But I'm not even hearing gurgling. Oh, it did. Yeah, there it gurgled. Okay. I was going to say, I'm kind of wondering if we need to take a look at the sack, because I am planning it one of these days to do a video on resacking pens, and maybe there's something wrong with the sack, or maybe it just doesn't hold a lot of ink. Don't know. Sacks do go bad after a while. Lee de Te. So this is a pen that has a decent amount of flex. See? And such a tiny, petite little nib. That's like the old saying, size isn't everything. Because this is a little feller. So we'll do the verticals. The horizontals. A little bit of an oblique test, but I think this one more shines because of that bit of flex that it has. My next pen. So, as often as I pointed this out, my dumb comment on that Kaweco Sport about, oh, it's going the wrong way. Even on this Senator President, where I have made multiple jokes about this wording. Political jokes. Never just registered that, oh, that goes the wrong way. Okay, so Senator President. So this is a broad gold nib. I do own one with a steel nib. I recommend the broad if you can get it. And this ink is Lamy Turquoise, which, if you lay down enough, has a bit of a reddish sheen. Another one of those words that I'm going to be talking about toward the end of the video. It's quite a nice ink. I've been impressed with Lamy. Now, mostly they don't have a huge range of colors. Now, they kind of sort of went into luxury ink line, but I don't know. I've never felt that interested in buying one. Can I say that? Or should I stop mumbling and just say it out loud? Don't want to buy one! Trying to get rid of ink, not add ink. Okay, here is a vintage Kaweco Sport. So, publishing that video about my new one made me curious. So I have to film that video. We're going to have to get them both with the same ink in them, so it may be this one. So this is a Lamy, Kaweco V16 Sport. Mine has, can you read it? No. Has an extra fine nib. So it takes a while for ink to get used up in this pen. Now I just put a double broad nib on my modern Kaweco Sport, so that's awkward. But anyway, this is Sailor, Jentle, Apricot. And now it's another one of those inks that I'm slowly using up. I'm trying to introduce a little variety, even as I use them up, as I'm focusing on a few inks, that it's not always the same 8 inks every week. But this currently is my only orange I have out. So it is what it is. And finally, my Platinum Pocket Pen. And I think it was pens in use. Somebody was commenting about its hard starts and they don't like platinum. And the hard starts were one of the things they mentioned because... Did I recently do a revisit to this? Now I've got to go look at my video catalog. I don't think I did. But with my habit of filming at a quite different time from when I publish, I can't always remember. No, not recently. I haven't done a revisit, so it must have been a pens in use. Or maybe they were commenting on the old video. I don't know. Anyway, platinum. Oh, and we get a hard start right away as soon as I said that. And I was even writing with it this evening, too. So this is a Platinum Mini. The nib in it is a broad. The ink in it is Akkerman, Groenmarkt Smaragd. Just a kind of a darker green, very kind of a natural-ish looking green. I have so many green inks left. I haven't even thought about, when I use the last one up, what will be the replacement bottle. One thing I should bring up is I have a bottle of Fuyu's Shogun I bought, which is gray, because I successfully used up all my gray ink. But nowhere near that victory with any other color. But that's okay. I have some interesting oranges ready to go of various types. This one is what I'm really looking forward to using again. I haven't used it in a long time. It's Noodler's Drag... Oh, hell no. Okay. That's not bubbles you're seeing on the side of the bottle. That is slime. That is slime. Alrighty. So you know how I just said I can't wait to start using this against Napalm? Oh my god. I am not putting a ink with slime in it into one of my pens. This one's going down the sink. And you might see now why I'm making the effort to use up inks, because I want to use them up before this happens to them. Oh god, there's all kinds of slime at the bottom. Yeah, yuck. This one at least I'm not going to be able to tell if there's slime.
I haven't seen slime I've seen slime once before. I literally, thank goodness it was a glass pen, but I literally stuck a glass pen in it to do a swatch. It was a private reserve of some kind. Anyway, stuck a pen in it to do a glass pen to do a swatch, and I picked the glass pen up, and this line of goop just ran from the end of my glass pen to my bottle, kind of like somebody sneezed in whatever color it was. And I just like, nope, we're not putting that in a pen. Yeah, haven't seen that in any too many other bottles, but that is always something if you have too much ink to be aware of. So there, you got a free PSA. And I know there's some of you out there, some of you people are going, you can save that. Nope, not going in one of my babies. All right, not the ending I expected to the writing sample, but you can't always control that. All right, so those are the pens and inks I've been using this week. First topic I wanted to get out, I was watching a video by Stephen Brown this week that was all about writing and how writing helps retention. And he went into the European methods of teaching handwriting and so on. And I thought, cool! Because I just talked about the previous week, handwriting, and I was more into the note-taking part and, how do you deal with what you read, and I got into highlighting and stuff. But related topic, and several people actually described their European experiences in the video, in the comments, so that was awesome. And I know there were two others that I saw that at least brought it up. I know Chris Sains did a book review about a book about using index cards for note-taking. And there was somebody else got into the topic. So the zeitgeist must be there, that we're talking about retention in handwriting. And I actually had a discussion this week with one of my colleagues who was in teaching, left teaching for quite a while and came back and is dealing with how different things are now in education. And one of the things that we both agreed has changed a lot is kids aren't getting real life experiences like the writing, measuring things for real. It's just, the teacher's teaching us rulers today. Yay, I'll learn the ruler lesson, then I will promptly forget everything I learned as soon as I walk out the classroom door. Because who uses rulers in real life? Kids who don't know how to use basic tools. Do really what she thinks of as basic things. And, in the years, we've had not just video games, because they were a thing when I was a kid. I mean, admittedly, Pac-Man isn't quite on the level of Mortal Kombat or whatever the kids do these days. But they were out there. They could be distracting. There was movies made about people playing video games at the arcade machine at the local gas station, which turns out to be a recruiting effort by aliens. Watch that movie if you want to. I can't remember what it's called, but it has a very famous actor plays the alien recruiter. He also played in The Music Man. But anyway, I was reading an article recently about how hand hobbies like crochet, knitting, woodwork are actually making a comeback among young people. I find that my students actually, it's nice. Oh, we don't use computers this hour. That's great. There's times for the computer, but yeah, it's nice not to have to use them. Because there is something to that tactile feedback that's very different from that virtual world you get on a computer screen. And nowadays, this was starting to be an issue when she was teaching, but cell phones have gone leaps and bounds since then. I mean, this is an old cell phone now. So they've got it right in their pocket. Why do you have to do anything real world? There's that happy balance between real world and virtual. I mean, here I am talking to you virtually. I'm recording this Thursday night because I didn't get to it earlier. and for the third time in a row because, well, I'm dumb sometimes. I didn't press record on the camera, just on the microphone the first time. Second time, I didn't notice that the battery went dead as I was recording, and so I'm on the third time. But this takes a different set of skills than talking to a classroom or to an audience of live people. Especially a classroom, because kids, it's like a sport to be rude. So, what I'm trying to say is there are skills lost in the virtual, but there are also skills to be gained. And the nice thing I've gotten out of watching this is, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. I have to tell myself to shut up and try to do that better the next time. So on that vein, I'm going to move on. I'm just going to close with this, that the more you can involve other senses, the more likely you are to remember. So if you're writing, you're a lot more likely to remember than tip-a-tap on the keyboard. Or worse, the people who think recording audio is note-taking. Hint, it's not. Handwriting is actually the best because you have to process it because there's no way your handwriting is going to keep up. And I know some of you are going to say, well, wasn't your mother a secretary at one time and didn't she have to take dictation with shorthand? Yes, she did. But she didn't have to retain it. She just had to take it down, type it, get approval and a signature from the boss. And this is 60s, 70s. Sorry, Mom, I kind of gave away your age there. I came along and ended her secretarial career. But anyway, before I offend everybody, I want to get into communication. So, yeah, that's part of taking it in. That's part of remembering it. For some reason tonight, I have to keep pressing the screen here before it shuts down. That's all part of retaining. But here's the deal. I work in a job where I have to communicate with people. Sometimes that makes me overly loquacious because, sometimes people don't hear what I hear because they're off. Sometimes they don't hear what I say because they're actively not paying attention. Who knows what it is? Sometimes they don't hear what I say because they're not, they've just chosen not to listen. Sometimes they don't hear what I say because they were paying total attention, but the words mean something totally different to them. So, I'm going to give you 2 quick examples, and we'll get into fountain pens. So one of my examples is from Science Olympiad. So in Science Olympiad, we have an event called Write It, Do It. And what you do is you have 2 kids, because it has to be an event with 2 kids. One is in that room, one's in that room. And the kid in that room has a thing built out of common objects like pipe cleaners, stickers, plates, paper cups, Legos, Connects, Tinker Toys, those kind of things. And they have 20 minutes to write down how to build it. They can't draw. They can't take a picture. They only get to pass whatever they write down in 20 minutes. Then don't worry, that's decaf. Then the person that's in the other room has to build it. So they've got 20 minutes to build it. And basically you're scored on how close they get. So sometimes you get the dream team and they can communicate. I've had siblings actually make remarkably good teammates for this. But sometimes they'll just come back raging and say, "What did you mean by pointy green thing? Well, isn't it obvious?" And no, it wasn't obvious. They communicated what they thought was clear, but it wasn't. If you don't have a common language, that can happen. I'm going to give you an example from my reading. Some couple of years ago, I read a book by Stephen King. We're done talking about Stephen Brown. Stephen Brown probably wouldn't write a book like this. Stephen King. It was about a murder where some monster, because it's Stephen King, was killing little kids. And I don't mean a monster as in human, I mean as in a literal monster that could shapeshift and stuff. Anyway, one of the main characters in this novel was, in the book's called The Outsider, if I forgot to mention that, one of the main characters was named Holly Gibney. Now, if you're like me, when you read a book, it kind of turns into a movie in your head. You picture what they look like, you picture what the scenes look like, even if they're really descriptive, maybe even grandiloquent, like Wheel of Time guy. Forgot his name. Robert Jordan. Even if they're, like him, very descriptive of the buttons and stuff, you still form your own picture. Well, anyway, I pictured this one main character named Holly Gibney as being a black woman. Now, she's autistic, she's socially awkward, she didn't have the best family background. I actually had a reason to question why I thought she was black later, which I'll get to. But I'll tell you, the main thing that made me think that is her remembering a high school taunt where the kids made fun of her last name and kind of turned it into a monkey call. And yeah, racist. Which was kind of what I thought. Oh, Stephen King is driving at these kids were racist and they were really mean to her. I don't know now if he was driving at that, but I later read Mr. Mercedes, which is a murder mystery where she was first introduced. And then there's a book about some kid who finds a book manuscript written by a famous author who's been murdered, and another one about, a serial killer who is in a coma in a hospital but able to take over brains. Okay, we're going to pause here to reset the camera. So I don't remember the titles of all these books. I remember Mr. Mercedes, and I remember The Outsider. And, oh yeah, there was another one. It was about two old people that kept kidnapping people to eat them. No monsters in that book other than the two old people were pretty monstrous. But anyway, I didn't think anything of it. Sometime this summer, I found out there was a mini-series based on The Outsider, so I watched it, and Holly Gibney was indeed black. And thought nothing of it until Christmas rolled around. At Christmas, I found out there's a mini-series called Mr. Mercedes. And this was about Holly Gibney only gets like a small walk-on part in it, just like she does in the book. But it took me a couple episodes to figure out, wait, this awkward white girl is Holly Gibney, not the black woman I was picturing this whole time. So whoever read that book and made that miniseries saw her as white. Now, what is she meant to be? I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, it wasn't really communicated. Or if it was, it wasn't obvious enough for me. So, if they say things like blonde hair and blue eyes, kind of a hint. If they leave the descriptions vague, like messy hair or plain looks, don't know. So, that brings me to fountain pens. Because as pen people, we need to be able to talk intelligently about our pens. And we can't say pointy green thing when we're doing what I'm doing right now. I have to be able to say flex, finial, section, barrel. And you need to know what I'm talking about. If you're new to the fountain pen world, when I mentioned the exciting thing in tonight's video about putting a platinum converter in a Geha, if you're new to fountain pens, you're just like, what are you talking about? Because what's a converter? What's a Geha? What's a platinum? None of it makes sense. Might pick it up because I've got video going with it, but I'm using specialized vocabulary there. And even if you're into fountain pens, you may not know the brand Geha, in which case you're going to be like, what's a Geha? Never heard of it. Can I buy them at Fountain Pen Hospital? Well, So we're kind of assuming, and we need some language. So I have a student who knows a little about fountain pens, probably enough to be dangerous. And he asked me if I had any pens where they do that boingy springy thing, and then he did this with his fingers. Well, by boingy springy thing, he means do they flex? And yeah, I do, but I'm not bringing them to school. I'm not putting them in the hands of a teenage boy. Well, I guess I could talk about the boingy springy thing that my pens do here on the channel. Stephen Brown would probably have a more intelligent way of describing it. Chris Rap 52 would have a very East Coast way of describing it. ODE might have a totally different way of describing it. And we're all meaning the same thing, and all of you viewers would be like... Or we could talk about flex. Then we start talking about flex, and you're like, do you mean really boingy springy, or do you mean they just kind of go whoop, whoop, whoop? All right. Oh, wet noodle flex. And so we just end up needing more and more terms, and they don't all mean the same thing. I have seen soft nibs described as flex. I have described nibs that are flexible as being... you don't know the meaning of the word flex because you've clearly never touched a vintage pen in your life. What about nail? Even sizes like medium, broad, double broad. What do they mean? Not the same thing. Buy a Japanese and a European pen. They're not the same. What's scratchy? What's feedback? What's singing? And then we have our special types of pens. What's my workhorse? What's my daily driver? What's my everyday carry pen? Are any of these terms synonyms? Vintage, antique, modern. Do we have a rigorous definition of them all? Pocket pen. I thought that one was obvious, but no, I've been corrected several times that that's not a pocket pen because that's a Japanese pocket pen, and a Japanese pocket is different from a Western pocket. Something to do with kimonos. I didn't quite follow the argument. Then there's ink terms like ghosting, feathering, show through, bleed through, sheen. I watched a video recently where the person was talking about the sheen of their ink. What they were using was one of those glittery inks that has little pieces of glitter suspended in it. To me, that's not sheen. Sheen, to me, is what you get when you have the ink on really thick and it dries so it's kind of shiny. Might have seen some sheen on my Lamy Turquoise tonight. Who knows? Lubricated. To some people, that's how well does it flow through the pen. Apparently, to the Noodler's brand, it literally lubricates the pen parts. So, I see a driving video in this. Maybe what we need to work on as pen people is, what is that common language? What do those terms mean? Can we get it more rigorous? I've seen attempts to define flex by how much the tine spread versus the force put on the nib. That's pretty rigorous, but do you trust us all to do it the exact same way? That's one thing with science. One of the reasons I like science, actually, is everything is fairly rigorously defined. Language doesn't have that. That's why we have so many words that mean the same thing, especially in English, because we borrow from other languages all the time. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'd like to do a video where I talk about what these terms mean. I think what I would need to do is actually have it on the screen where you can see it. And then sit back and let the comments roll in, where everybody says, Wasky Squirrel is wrong! He doesn't know what he's talking about. How could anybody from North Dakota know what they're talking about? And then we can have a whole debate. And then maybe get some responses that say, this is what a wet noodle is. I don't know, but it's made me realize, and doing this has made me realize that, yeah, I'm not always saying to you what I'm saying in my brain, because you're hearing my words differently or whatever. And that goes way outside fountain pens, which would be a whole deep topic to get into also, but I don't want to do that tonight, because it's the third time I've recorded this, honestly, and I'm getting bored with this whole topic. So I'm going to close it there. I want to thank you for watching. And if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens, both new and old, and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, do you have comments on fountain pen words? Do you have more exact definitions for some of these words? Do you run into this communication issue in other books? Do you agree with me about Holly Gibney's Race? Or did I read Stephen King wrong and the miniseries The Outsider also read it wrong? Let me know down in the comments. So as always, I want to thank you for watching. It's been another cold week here in sunny North Dakota. And we'll talk to you later.